Welcome. I'm here with Zakaria from the Muslim Youth Fellowship. Zakaria, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Jazakallah khair. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
So tell me, to begin, what is the Muslim Youth Fellowship?
The Muslim Youth Fellowship is a program that was approved by the City of Toronto to help get more young Muslim professionals involved in the City of Toronto and get them opportunities to learn about how democracy works at the local level, a level of governance that's the closest to the people. And if you think back to when the program first got established, it may have been 2017, but it really came out of a series of conversations in 2015 across the Muslim community about finding ways to get more young Muslims engaged in politics, when on the flip side, they were hearing a lot of rhetoric around Islamophobia, things attacking their personal values, and that was extremely concerning. And that's how I got really involved in a federal campaign in 2015.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get buy-in? How did this program get approved by the city?
So at the time, and to my knowledge, to limited knowledge about how everything got approved, there was a clear case for the need to get more young Muslims engaged in local politics, working with city council, and through the relationships that the Muslim community has, and through the great work of everybody involved, this was a city building effort. Like any other initiative you can think of a city doing like Toronto, it is for Muslim people, it is for Muslim youth, but the need for it was that we needed to help strengthen our democracy by making sure that everybody was at the table and that they were being engaged in a genuine way where they could see, like, the packaging and the process behind how democracy happens in their communities. And I'm super, super fortunate to have been one of the fellows that was a part of the first cohort.
Mm-hmm. So how did you become a fellow? What was the application process like?
It was a thorough application process. We applied sometime late in the summer of 2017. And then we were brought in for interviews in city council, various chambers. We had established Muslim professionals who have been spending years of sweat equity and professional capital that they built up, doing their work in politics, making sure that spaces were inclusive for everybody, not only people from the Muslim community. And alhamdulillah, through the great graces of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I was fortunate to get an interview. And then I sat in front of a great panel of interviewers, and they asked us why we wanted to be Muslim fellows, not just fellows, not why we wanted to be, not why we wanted a job at the City of Toronto, but why do we want to be Muslim fellows? And I think it's pretty powerful growing up in the area we grew up in, where it's quickly, gauged in public opinion that you can be otherized because of where you come from, your principles, your values, and what you believe in. And for the city to say that's not right, we want to make sure that everyone's at the table, shows that the City of Toronto has the ability to be a policy leader on social policy issues.
Mm-hmm. So let me put you on the spot then. Why would someone want to be a Muslim fellow?
I think you want to be a Muslim fellow because whenever you do enter spaces where you don't feel like you're being properly represented, and whether it's in tech spaces, whether it's in spaces of business, philanthropy, politics, you want to make sure you come in with your full self, your most authentic self, and that's why you want to be a Muslim fellow. You're not shying away, right, anymore. You don't have to hide in the corner to make salah. They know you're a Muslim, they know you need prayer space. And I think that changes the game where you see inclusion being leveraged in a way that it's no longer diversity as just a buzzword, but spaces are now more inclusive, not only allowing but empowering people to be their full self. And it shows, there's statistics everywhere that when you allow people to be authentic in the workplace, you allow people to get into these spaces and be their full selves, they perform better, they're great team players, and they ultimately are extremely loyal and supportive of the work that's being done.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's been some criticism of this being a Muslim fellowship. I'm sure you've seen and heard all of the criticism in the media from right-wing individuals. How would you respond to that? Why did you decide to have a Muslim fellowship? Why not, let's say, a visible minority fellowship or something a little bit more inclusive?
I think the issue that's been touched upon several times about, oh, you guys are playing identity politics, you're crafting these very specific spaces for people because of their certain backgrounds, it's nonsense, right? Historically, there have been programs like this that add value, that make sure our democracy is becoming more inclusive and it's evolving in a way to strengthen it, right? And everybody wants to have a say at the table. Some don't know how to access the table. Some don't know what's needed to get to the table. So if we do want to have these thorough conversations around identity, what it means to be Canadian, what it means to be Canadian Muslim, then it's important that we have everybody involved in a very authentic manner And I really, personally, I don't pay too much attention to a lot of the right. I think it's noise.
Yeah.
And I'm always open to having a conversation with them. And it's unfortunate because I know this is a great country. We're super fortunate to be here in the city of Toronto. And you've clearly seen people dispel that. I'll say this, though. It is extremely troubling when discourse and public media and popular media pick up the sentiments from the right, and that spews into the public, and you have people pick up the language that's being used because there are effects that people don't see, right? And biases that start to form around what it means to be a Muslim in politics, what it means to be a Muslim public service. And the Muslim Fellowship is not a program for people who want to get into politics. The way it was framed, this is a fellowship for public service, right? Politics and the way that we were taught what politics is, it's service to others. And this stems from a lot of our upbringings as Muslims, right? You don't do things in a transactional manner. You don't do things tit for tat. You don't do things in a zero-sum way. It's more, you're getting involved in this.
You want to contribute to the community.
Exactly.
Yeah, build community building. Yeah.
And a lot of the language that was used and the mentality the program maintained and still has, and the attitude. And it's really important thing around attitudes in our democracy and around civic engagement in our democracy, ensuring that the attitudinal shifts don't go the wrong way, and that we have people who do have the mindset of service to others and are doing politics that type of way.
So walk me through what a fellow would do in their time. I understand it's a one-year term. So what happens in that term?
So it's an 8-month program. 4 months of the program is for training, where we met with various leaders in political circles. And once the training was completed, we then began our internships working for local councilors. And that was to develop our civic readiness, right? Our ability to understand the concepts, understand how governance works. So we met with people across the political spectrum. But this is not a partisan program. We weren't pigeonholed into one political party. We were focused on strengthening our democracy. And that meant we had to hear ideas and views from people from across the political spectrum. And having that training allowed us to better work in local councilors' offices. We then spent the next 4 months doing the 12 to 15 hours of our internship, constituency work, volunteering at local events, writing policy briefs and memos, taking notes at council. So there's a wide range of activities that a lot of the young fellows engaged in.
What do you hope to come out from this program? What do you hope to emerge out of this program? Do you hope there'll be more Muslims in public service, perhaps?
I think the aim is to have more people, yes, of the Muslim community, from the Muslim community and of Muslim background, for them to build those bridges.
What's the percentage of Muslims in city politics?
Locally, like as local elected officials?
Toronto, yeah.
I don't think we have any local officials that are elected that are currently Muslim. There are now 25 city councilors. None of them are of Muslim background.
So the visible and the visible minority population in Canada is more than half now. It's more than 50%.
Yeah, in the Toronto area, it's about 51%.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you do this thing where you kind of reflect on the stats, it is a bit concerning. Yes. But at the same time, though, there are the hopes not to just to have, Muslims in political office and political seats, but also to get more Muslims into public service. And the statistics of Muslims that are working in public service is probably pretty high. And I'd love to see what the data looks like. So we have a lot of Muslims working in the bureaucracy across various levels of government. And that's a positive place to be in the sense of you can push policy forward. But when it comes to getting local Muslims elected, as you've seen on the federal level and on the provincial level, there are a ton of Muslims elected. And hopefully that work can carry down locally. But this program is to get more young Muslims involved in public service, whether it's to become politicians or get into the bureaucracy. That varies based on where their interest lies.
Why municipal politics? Are you thinking of, looking towards provincial, federal? Why'd you choose municipal?
Personally, I've grown up in the city my whole life. I've taken transit since I was a kid, like 11, 10 years old. So local politics, I feel like, is the closest to the people. Whether it's like you have something wrong with, your toilet and something's not working with the pipes, to you have a huge pothole in your neighborhood. It's the place where you can have the most impact personally on a one-on-one basis. And more importantly, locally, as a city, we're growing and our Muslim population is growing. And if we're trying to grow as a community and make sure democracy is being strengthened, it's really important. I also grew up in 2 neighborhoods that are deemed by the city as neighborhood improvement areas. So I started to understand a lot of the different challenges that people face when they do come from marginalized communities.
So last thing, how can people apply to the Muslim Youth Fellowship?
So people can apply to the program through our website, and the website will be up and ready very soon. For our next cohort, we'll be recruiting for 2020. And as mentioned, it's an 8-month program. But I definitely encourage everyone to apply. It's not only a career accelerator, but it's a bridge building opportunity where you can be the bridge builder with your community to public service, to government. You can learn about how business operates and politics as well. But more importantly, the inclusion piece I mentioned earlier and the importance of everybody having a seat at the table and having those conversations that are needed so we don't have to pay attention to the noise, right? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people who do want to have the conversations no matter where they lie on the political spectrum, and making sure that everyone's involved in our democracy. And we see people are talking about democracy, whether it's on social media, whether it's in a coffee shop, drinking chai tea or drinking shah. Everybody's having those conversations about democracy right now.
Zakaria, so exciting to talk to you and to hear about the Muslim Youth Fellowship. I wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thank you so much.